Hi, so I'm going to say this again because it bears saying. The comments on this channel, the community on this channel is just plain awesome. Now, a lot of people have asked me over the years, what's a channel about? And when it first began, it was kind of obvious. It was about batteries. And then I kind of developed it really, and things always change and develop, and you grow with them, and it became about, well, windmills, but then about energy storage and energy generation, because I started looking at motors, I started looking at alternative ways of generating, we looked deeper into wind, and we've always looked at batteries, so it became about those things. And it only really struck me recently, in the last year or two, what the channel was actually about. The channel's about learning and inspiration, and that sounds a stupendously arrogant thing to say, like, I'm going to teach you everything. I'm not teaching you anything. What it is I can 100% guarantee when I start a project, I know jack about it. I'm bumbling around in the dark, trying a few things out, getting feedback from people, and learning. The learning isn't really me teaching you. It's got nothing to do with it. It's a two-way street. I'm learning, and I think we're all learning along with each other. So that learning aspect of it is something we're actually doing together, is how I tend to see it. Now, the inspiration side of it, I think that, I get that actually. I can see why people say that, because it is a bit deeper, I think. Now, when we learn something, there are really only three ways to learn. You can learn visually, you can learn audially, or you can learn kinesthetically. That is, you learn by watching it, you learn by hearing how to do it, somebody tells you, or you learn by somebody showing you how to do it. Somebody will pick up a saw and put your hand on the saw and show you. Now, I'm that kind of learner. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing. Unfortunately, of course, most of the education systems that we run into are audio-visual, and they've become worse over the years. I mean, that's in inverted commas. They've become more audio-visual and less kinesthetic. When I did my chemistry degree, you actually did the experiments, and right back to O-level, I started the O-levels, we did experiments, O-level, A-level chemistry. I'm told these days that doesn't happen so much. I'm told these days that people tend to turn to the book. They don't do the experiment as much. And to a degree, I think that disenfranchises the kinesthetic learner. Now, it's not that we are one thing or another. It's not like that. We're actually a mix of things. It's just one particular style will predominate. And for me, it's kinesthetics. And I think that the education going towards audiovisual has kind of disenfranchised a whole group of kinesthetic learners and cuts off the other learners from that kinesthetic aspect, which is as equally important. Because, of course, we are physical creatures. We are creatures that move in our world. We learn by doing. You learn to walk by trying to walk. You don't read a book about it, then give it a go. You give it a go first. So kinesthetics is something that's fundamental to what people are. It is that doing is what makes us human. At least that's my view of it. And being disenfranchised from that means that cuts off education and learning from an awful lot of people. And I think the fact that I do the experiments and actually do the work is opening that a little bit. And yes, I can see that that would be inspiring for folks. And I think that's awesome that that happens. But as I say, the learning side of it is something that goes two-way. And I'm very proud of that, actually, because I have some qualities, I think, that make me a reasonable person. I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. Okay, I'll bitch about it, but I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. I'm willing to learn, and above all, I'm willing to give it a go. Because to me, things have value because we take them from their natural state, and we did this as rocks, as transistors. We take them from their natural state, we do some kind of process, and we make them into a useful thing to us. But that's activity. Nature becomes useful because our activity transforms it. So doing is fundamental not only to what we are, but to our survival. And that's why I think doing is really important, and why I tend to do the experiments. And I think the knock-on effect is that disenfranchisement that's been going on is negated a little bit. And those are what I think are the important elements of the channel. Now, we don't only learn by doing, or you'd be reinventing the wheel entirely. As I say, we are predominantly one thing, but we are all three. We just predominate at one. So my method of learning something is to give it a go, make a balls up, listen to the criticism, have a bit of a read, and give it another go. That's how I tend to do it. And I find that, for me, that's one of the best ways of doing it. Now, I know some people will read first and then give it a go. But if you just read and never give it a go, I don't think learning has gone on. I think learning has to happen when you get up and do. Doing is the really important thing. It's got no merit or value to me if you don't do. Because if you don't do, there is no transformation. The transformation is in your head, and it never becomes useful because you've never put it out there into a thing that the rest of us can use. And experimentation and learning in that sense is fundamentally social. Because you don't do something for you particularly, you do it for everybody, even if you don't intend to. If you do something and it works better and people see it, they'll learn from that and do it themselves. So it is inherently social when you actually do something. When you sit and think and never do, it's inherently individualistic, antisocial, and to my mind, without being too rude, a little bit selfish. Now, one thing, there was a comment that prompted this actually. A chap had replied saying, don't bother with the experiment, just read this book. And he'd given this book, and I had a look at the book, and it was incredibly dense. And I thought, really? Who is going to read that and then think, yeah, I'll go and build a massive wind turbine now? It's not going to happen. And if that chap had taken a second to think, it's about my age, he would have realised that his learning had gone on the same way that mine has. That has, you read a bit and you do the experiment, you analyse it a bit, you talk about it, you read a bit more and you do another experiment. If he had basically learnt the same way I had learnt, by doing experiments, and he was advising somebody not to do that. That struck me as dumb, because I think it is all about doing. I'm always really pleased when people write to me and send me videos and photos of the stuff they're up to. I got one this morning from a chap from Holland who's making himself a wind turbine, and it's the first time he's ever done it. He's done an awesome job. And that's the point. Do. And yes, you're going to make mistakes because you've never done it before. I make mistakes all of the time because half of these things I have no idea about. I've never done them before. I'm given to go to sea, and so I make mistakes. But without mistakes, no learning goes on. If you do something perfect the first time, then you haven't learnt anything. Okay, you didn't need to, but you certainly haven't. If you make mistakes, you are going to learn. If you read, it will certainly improve what you're going to do. But if you only read and never do, you'll never do anything, clearly. So the experiment is fundamental to what learning is. Not only if you're a kinesthetic learner like me, but if you're an audiovisual learner, you have a strong element of kinesthetic within you. You must do. You're a human being. It's how you learn to feed yourself and not stuff food up your nose. You tried it. You didn't read a book. Don't stuff food up your nose, put it in your mouth. You gave it a go. And that's how you actually learnt. So actual learning goes on as a combination. And I'm learning all the time with you guys. When we do something, I am learning alongside everybody else. And the comments that I get actually are really important to that learning process and to me as well as everybody else. So I always love the comments, even if they're slightly negative. I try to encourage people to be helpful, respectful and positive in what they say, because I think that's also important. You feel bad enough you've made a mistake. Nobody needs to go, ha ha! What you need is somebody to go, well, you might have tried it this way, or that might have been an interesting way to try it. That encourages you. That's why I want positivity in the channel, because it encourages us all to learn. Encourages us all to learn, encourages us all to do, and that's how we're going to make the difference. If you don't do, you may be proud of it, but actually you're probably a little bit embarrassed about it. Anyway, I thought I would share all those ideas with you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you very much for watching.